pretty, so it's going to be fairly flat. I just want to raise a point while the president's here with us from something that was that came up earlier that Kate was talking about. So this one where Mike Levine in the States is blind, or technically blind, and therefore has somebody putting in his bid for him, and the person tells him what the cards are. Now, when it came to the end, and there was the time question came up, the penalty, as you were pretty close on, Kate, was 19.75.
That's huge. That's just a huge penalty.
That seems a huge number, but there were two other numbers that weren't very far off that. We don't know what the offences were, etc., but it seems a disproportionate amount, right?
Yes.
Now, one of the problems that comes out of it for Alison, as the president going to the WBF meetings in Marrakesch, is yes, we are getting people with more handicaps, wheelchairs, all the rest of it in bridge. The argument that was put up there was that was the rules for the tournament, right? That you couldn't just change them, because what happens if your elected team then went to the World Championships where they didn't have the leniency of the time, and you would be killed, your team would be killed because of not being outplayed in the time.
They're actually more lenient in the WBF. I don't think I've seen time penalties. They probably exist, but I haven't been a party to any, and I've played an awful lot of WBF events. And
so the question is that this change, because of our age group, etc., that these are issues that are starting to come up in bridge.
They certainly are.
And I think something, President, you may like to take in, be conscious of in case because it probably will be a discussion point when you're in Marrakesch, because this has been such an extreme example.
I would think so. It's an issue there. You know, I mean, I'm on the minority side of this issue because I'm a slow player, so I'm maybe not the right person to speak to it. But it is. I certainly, even if I strongly believed in the slow play penalties, which I don't, I would still make an exception for people who have serious handicap. Just don't give them a time problem. They're going to do their best. You know.
Okay, Alison, any thoughts?
Well, I'm with Kate on this. I think when you accept a person as an entry into the tournament, you know that these people have a particular need, and that need should be taken into account when any penalties are. If I were playing against them, I would be devastated that they were given that sort of penalty and that cost them the match, because I wouldn't see that as being fair. I do understand that it is in the regulations, and I think it's something that we certainly need to look at. I know there are people here just playing clubs that have a light over behind them and a magnifying glass because of their very poor sight, and everybody takes that into account. So yes, it's something I will raise, and something I think I can also raise with Matt and Laurie here to have a look as our national event coordinators to see if we can perhaps put something in that allows for people with specific needs.
Alison, I agree with that. But on the other hand, there has to be a limit. You can't have an unlimited time for them. You can't have going 3 hours afterwards. So I'm sympathetic to the problem, but it can't be unlimited.
See, in the Masters, that was just the US Masters that was just played, right? From memory, Tiger Woods in the third round, his legs got really bad. So he couldn't walk fast enough to be able to make the time cuts, the time on each round, on each thing. So he actually dropped out of the competition as a result of it because he couldn't meet the time requirement.
Ron, I do agree with you that there has to be a limit because, as you quite rightly point out, you can't have an event going 3 hours over overtime. So it's a very tricky situation. I don't know how many, the actual circumstances. I don't know how many warnings were given. I don't know all of that. So, there are all these nuances that you would have to look into before making comment. But I think it's certain. Sorry.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate.
I was going to say there's a lot of information on Bridgewinners about everything that happened. There's
Right.
quite a long discussion you might want to read.
Yeah, I've been reading that over lunch. Yeah.
What you can do though is everyone they get a certain time extra, and then you scrap the boards after that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be a very fair solution.
Yeah.
Speaking from a personal level, I'm dealing with it now, and I've actually discussed with Axel the possibility of not playing anymore in anything serious competition, because my eyesight is so bad, and I'm slow normal anyway. I mean, even in America, I'm slow. I always finish on time. We have much more time. You're probably aware of that. We get much more time for the boards than you give here. But I'm at a point where I can't enter an event and know that I'm going to finish on time. And we're trying to decide how we're going to deal with it. Up till now, we've been just saying, okay, we'll take the penalties, but we had 3 victory point penalty in the event yesterday. That's a lot to inflict on your teammates. So maybe we can only play pair games, and then at least we're the ones who suffer for it and not our teammates. But it is a serious issue to a lot of people. And then there's plenty of people who have no issue, like David, who plays so fast he doesn't know what we're talking about.
And Kate, some people that play so fast that I can't follow what's going on.
I can't anymore.
I agree.
When I was young, I could play fast, but there have to be a lot of people around like me still playing bridge who have gotten older and can't think as fast as we used to. And eyesight problems. I mean, I'm not the only close to 80-year-old in the bridge world anymore.
The other very small one, quick one to you, Kate, was I see that the playoffs were played on tablets. Is your event being played on tablets too?
It is, and that's much better for me personally, because I can see, and like I can see this screen with no trouble. But looking at the cards at the table, I very often miss one. I missort my hand frequently, so that takes extra time. We have to check every time, and it's an issue. But I don't want to make this about me. It's just not right that an event is decided that way. We have to do better.
When you come back, Kate, can you have a discussion with me and tell me what your experience was playing on the tablets? The pluses and the minuses, etc.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I have played on them once before, but yes, we'll do that.
So I'm in full agreement with Kate that if someone has eyesight issues, that we give them extra time. But in the Australian playoff for the Open team this year, one board took 27 minutes to play, and there were no eyesight issues involved, and that seemed extreme to me. 27 minutes.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it happen in a lot of events in America, and normally in a long match you can catch it up, but not always. Yeah.
But didn't they have a monitor, Dave?
I'm not sure what happened. I don't know that anyone was fined, but
because if you were well ahead and then you took 27 minutes to play a board, and therefore the last 3 boards didn't get played, for example, you would be at an advantage, wouldn't you?
Yes. There's plenty of issues like that involved. If for your opponents know that you're under pressure to finish on time and you're contending for the lead, they can just play slower and they don't get the penalty, and you do. And it's so you can.
That happens often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did this work out, David? You said you weren't happy with the ethical issues. What happened?
What happened was the contract was 3-no trumps doubled, and the declarer took 12 minutes to play from a card from dummy at trick 1. And not surprisingly, the defence then had issues with the defence, and the declarer, instead of going for 1,700, got out for 200. So it seemed strange to me that the declarer took 12 or 13 minutes to play the trick 1.
If that happens, David, can you call the director to the table when, say, 3 or 4 minutes lapse rather than waiting for 12 minutes?
Yes.
I would, yeah. I'd probably
Okay.
fall asleep, Alison, if it happened against me.
Well, that's maybe what happened, the Somanex coup, you know?
But
By the
that's,
time, they got around.
my
to it.
suggestion is that the declarer purposely did it on purpose. So that's my suggestion, and I don't know that I should say that publicly, but it didn't look kosher to me.
Wow.
No,
that-
Gary
That's-
Barwick's come up and made a comment that he'd order pizza if it took somebody 12 minutes to play the first. So I mean,
is this
we have
somebody
to see. Sorry,
is this
go ahead.
somebody who would have done that intentionally? I don't want you to name the person if you don't want to, but it
No.
surprises me.
No, don't name them.
No.
We can ask him privately.
Except privately, David.
Yeah.
It's very, I'm always hesitant to think anybody would do anything like that on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure whether Brad's actually, his name's up on the thing or not, whether he is, because this may interest him for the ABF News magazine too.
I don't know if I,
Okay, what's happening here, Ron? Have we missed something exciting?
No, boring 3 no trumps.
That's what I
Made
thought.
11 tricks on the left, making about the same on the right.
It's
Maybe
interesting in the
might
left
only be
screen
10
that
tricks on the
pass
right.
can be 0 to 6 or 15 to 20. So that makes
yes,
life a little tricky for the opponents.
no kidding. I played against it yesterday. It was entertaining.
Okay, and now he's held to 10 tricks. So it's 1 imp swing.
So, Kate, this system wouldn't be allowed to be played in America, is that right?
Oh, not at all, surely. Yeah.
And that is, among other things, one of the many reasons I'm living in Australia. This is the way bridge should be played. They play what they want to play and you figure it out. And if you're not good enough to figure it out, don't play in the event. That's my view.
Wouldn't they allow it in the Vanderbilt and spin cold?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, we've got
was
rules about you
mistaken.
have to have an anchor suit. Their 1 heart, I believe, is 0 to 7 any shape, I think. I'm not
Yes.
positive on that one. One of them is.
Yes, that's correct. 0
And
to 6 or 0 to 7.
and it, you know, it's very difficult to play against. I liked the challenge. Axel and I enjoyed it. We got 1 hand wrong out of about 6 where they threw something at us, but you know, that's one we won't get wrong again. Yeah, I like it. I think it's part of the game. It makes it more interesting, but a lot of people in America particularly thoroughly disagree with, as you know, we still can't play multi in America.
And should this only be at the highest levels in our gold level matches or right down through the club system?
No, not in clubs.
I don't think you should be able to play fancy stuff in a club because newer players will be put off by playing against artificial systems like that.
Absolutely
Isn't
agree.
it up to the club directors whether they allow it?
Now, what would be more fair would be to let players choose to play against it if they wish at the
Mhm.
club level. Gary Barwick just made a choice. If you don't play against it, how do you get to defend against it at the
Right.
high levels?
I would allow it at any level, but I would be aware that the club director can say no because they know what their club members are. Now, Axel and I play our system, which isn't really complicated to an expert player, it's relay, but to the not newcomers, it's pretty strange. And
Alison,
but we
the
don't-
question was whether this should be allowed. They're
Right.
talking about a range of 0 to 6 and 15 plus on the 1 bid or something, whether this should be allowed at club level.
If people choose to play against it.
Yeah,
They can
that's
choose.
what I would say. I thoroughly agree. If they choose, and they can choose not to, they can say, no, we don't want to. And then you have to have a second system, that's all. But
And
Yeah, I think there
the
can.
board,
there's-
sorry, boring
some-
3 no trumps here. We're making 11 tricks at both tables.
Okay, we'll keep talking. Yep.
Yep.
Alison,
There's such a thing as a protected players,
Yes.
and I know at the Tasmanian Festival of Bridge we paid 2. We weren't allowed to play optimal 2s, which is just something slightly different, not difficult but slightly different, because they were protected. So I think clubs can have protected players that if they feel that the system is going to really disadvantage them. So I think that's one way a club can handle it.
mhm.
I think Matthew McManus has said that
Yeah.
in some events you
Well,
can't
it's a
play it
good
in the
point, but
first
how
round.
do they learn to play against if they ever get to play?
Hang on, let Ron speak, yep.
So you can't play it in the first round when you're drawn against a low team, and after that, you can't play it in the bottom 2/3 of the field. If you're playing a team in the top third, it's open to do what you wish.
Yeah,
And
and that's
in the bottom
that's
2/3, no.
Is that the
that's a bit,
regulation
Ron,
now?
like
or
having it.
You're
sorry.
suggesting that, Ron?
No, I'm not
That's-
suggesting, I'm saying that's what the case is
Oh, in
Yes.
Australia?
in Australia
Yes.
in some of the major events.
I didn't know that.
So
And-
it's a
and
good
that's-
idea. I mean, the first round you're protected. The bottom two are protected because you have a random draw, to which I don't agree. But after the first round, the bottom 2/3 are protected.
I think it's a good idea.
Yep, it can also on the draw. It has a symbol against the players who are protected, but if they're protected, they have no problem about telling you that they're protected when they come to the table, and that so they uphold their own rights. I've had it happen several times to me in events. I've also in the early days of playing, experienced exactly what Ron said, where people who play really artificial systems weren't allowed to play against us in the first round because we were very inexperienced. So, I've seen both sides.